When I was preparing for this presentation, one thing that came to my mind is when did companies start using our personal data and use it as part of their marketing strategy? Back in the days when big bulky computers were still a thing and Nokia phones were still considered fashion, no one really cared about what you search on the internet. Even after smartphones became popular during the late 2000s, you won't really receive any ads such as Chick-fil-A after you search McDonald's on your web browser. Fast forward to today, companies are utilizing the power of behavioral retargeting by tracking your browsing history and sell their products to potential consumers. Next slide. Behavioral retargeting. So what is behavioral retargeting? It is a form of online targeted advertising that is targeted to consumers based on their previous internet actions. So what companies do is they will track online users by using a web beacon and then set a cookie to their user's browser. Once a cookie is set in a user browser, the next time when you visit the website, your web browser will send the cookie back to the web server, so they will recognize your ID, your cookie, and then they will customize their web page or their service to you. Next slide. So one of the keys to implement behavioral retargeting is by using internet cookies. So what are internet cookies? Let's let Ryan to explain it.
I'd say internet cookies are data that a website stores on your computer.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. So wait, next slide. So the definition of internet cookies is one or pieces of information stored as text strings on your machine. So when it's stored on a machine, your browser will set it as a cookie, and then the next time you visit the same website, it will return a cookie to the web server. Next slide. I believe a lot of you guys have purchased items from Amazon, and it's actually a pretty good example of using internet cookies. Next slide. So let's say when you buy a book from Amazon and you fill out your personal information, your payment information, they will assign you an ID and then store it on their database. Once it's set on the database, they will set a cookie and then send it to you to your browser. Your browser will then store it on your hard disk, so that the next time when you log into Amazon or you just visit their page, your browser will send a cookie back to their server, and the web server will recognize your ID, and then customize the page just for you. That's why when you log into Amazon or you revisit Amazon, they will normally have stuff like welcome back and your name, and a page just for you, like recommendations and stuff like that. Next slide. Another way for companies to track your information is by selling or buying information from internet service providers. What they do is they track your clicks or any information you enter on your browser, and those information are valuable to them because they can sell them to other companies, and this is a big part of their revenue. They can also sell them to outside organizations such as police departments or government agencies. Next slide. You guys might think that this is not too big of a deal if you have some targeted advertisements or governments know some of your information, but if you think about it in this way, when you buy something or whatever you do on the internet, like the ISP, which is the internet service provider, they can know everything about you. So sometimes when you visit websites that you don't want anyone to know about, they will still know what you've done on your browser. So a second concern, like the second example, is about insurance. So like your insurance provider, when you are, let's say when you concerning that you have cancer, so you look up something like cancer warning signs, your insurance provider might know about it, so it may cause some problems to your insurance. The third thing is about employment. So when you're actively seeking for a new job, would you want your employer to know about this, like you're actually looking for a new job? So those are the concerns that might have when you when your browsing history is getting tracked. Next slide. Let's move on to ethics. Those stakeholders that are involved are companies, which are the ones who sell or collect your data, internet users, customers, or potential customers. Here I listed potential customers because when you're browsing a product page, when you haven't purchased anything yet, you're considered a potential customer. Last but not least, government agencies. Next slide. So there are three controversies that I want to discuss with you guys. The first thing is called the fingerprinting technology that companies use right now. So this technology, what it does is it can recognize individual customer or online user by collecting personal data from different times, different locations, or for different reasons. They can identify each online user. So what I meant is, for example, when you're sharing a computer with your family members, each of you guys use the same computer at different times, but they can recognize which person is which. Yeah, so you can no longer have your identity hidden online. The second controversy is about big data. As we know, big data is a big part of 21st century technology. The controversy here is most people don't know that the data they collected are mostly personal data. So companies can utilize big data to make profit, and customers might not know about this. The third one is the lack of transparency. Because as I said, when companies are tracking your history, you might not be informed of it. So this is one of the ethical issues that they have. Next slide. So there are two cases I want to share with you guys. The two companies are Google and Target. Next slide. First, let's start with Google. So as we know, Google is a successful company in terms of their revenue and the size of a company. The next slide. But there's some controversy that they've caused since they have so many users using Google. Their privacy policy states that they only share content that the users are agreed to, but most users don't know that every observable action on the internet can be shared by Google. The second thing is about their products. Their advertising services such as Google Ads or Google AdSense, they both use cookies. And this is what we mentioned earlier in the slides, that the cookies they've used will cause online privacy controversy. The third one is Google Analytics. This is a service provided to web owners to track some history of their visitors, such as their locations, their IP addresses, or the frequency when they visit the website. Next slide. The second company is Target. Their mission statement says they fulfill the needs and feel the potential of their guests. But when they said they feel the potential of their guests, they cause some concern, which we will talk about later in the case. Next slide. So there's a famous case about a teenage girl getting pregnant and then later getting discovered by Target. So what this case is basically about is there's a high school teenage girl, she found out she's pregnant, so she looked up online about information of pregnancy, and Target, they learned about this information, so they sent her a coupon to her home address. But unfortunately, her dad is the one who opened the package and found out the coupon. So his dad was so furious, he went straight to one of the Target store, and then asked the manager, why did they send her such coupons? Are they trying to encourage her to have babies in high school, stuff like that? And then it turns out that she is really pregnant, so her dad apologized to the manager. But the moral of the story is Target is using predictive analytics to infer some future tendencies of their customers. And they also use a tool called Pregnancy Prediction Score, which they They have 87% accuracy that they can know whether the customer is pregnant or not. Next slide. So there are 3 laws that I found when I was doing my research. The first one is General Data Protection Regulation. The second one is FTC Privacy and Data Security, which is made during Obama's presidency. And the third one is Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. And one thing to notice is there aren't many laws right now regarding online privacy. They're mostly about children's rights. So if the government can make more laws regarding this, it will be better. Next slide. Solutions, how to cope with cookies. When you're using your browser, you can use a thing called the private mode. Most browsers have this function, and when you use private mode, cookies can't be allowed on your browser. The second one is using security software, which they can delete cookies pretty effectively. The third one is simply just don't allow it when you're using your browser. Next slide. How to cope with ISP. So there are several ways you can deal with internet service providers selling or tracking your information. First one is to use Tor browser, which has a similar function as using private mode. Second one is VPN, which can hide your IP address. Third one is proxy services, which has a similar function to VPN. The fourth one, which I mentioned, is to make some proposal of provision in the law. Next slide. The impact on stakeholders. For companies, they won't be able to receive that much data from customers any longer if customers are aware of they're getting tracked and the information are getting sold by companies. And for internet users, they will have a more secure personal data. And third one, for customers, they will receive less advertisements. For government, they can still get those information since agencies such as the FBI, they have the right to get information when necessary. Next slide. In conclusion, I want to share with you guys a quote that I found. It says, "Privacy is not an option, and it shouldn't be the price we accept for just getting on the internet." This is a quote from a CEO of a technology company called Gary Kovacs, and I think it's a pretty good quote. Thanks.